Hello, listeners. Welcome to Stories by Peter Hubb. If you love gripping tales of betrayal, steel revenges, and hard-won truth, please make sure to subscribe. Mike had always prided himself on his stability. At 42, he had built a successful career, owned a cozy apartment downtown, and had a circle of friends he trusted. But none of that mattered when he was with Ashley. Ashley, 34, had a sparkle in her eyes and an unpredictable charm that drew Mike in from the first moment they met. Her laugh was contagious, her spontaneity intoxicating. She could turn a quiet evening into an adventure, a mundane weekend into something memorable. Their romance began slowly but intentionally. They spent weekends exploring new parts of the city, sharing brunches at little-known cafes, and exchanging stories late into the night. Mike admired Ashley's creative mind, while Ashley felt safe in Mike's dependable presence. "I can't believe how much fun we had today," Ashley said one Sunday, resting her head on Mike's shoulder as they walked through the park. "I know," Mike replied with a smile. "I feel like we always find a way to make ordinary days extraordinary." Their bond strengthened with each passing month. Mike introduced Ashley to his family. She reciprocated by sharing her world with him. They talked about the future, about travel, about building a life together. Yet beneath the joy, Mike occasionally noticed Ashley's restless glances when she thought he wasn't looking. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, a spark of longing or curiosity that hinted at something beyond their relationship. For now, he chose to ignore it, clinging to the happiness they had. Their love, as perfect as it seemed, had the seeds of vulnerability planted in its foundations, waiting silently for the first tremor of betrayal to shake it all apart.
Time passed, and the rhythm of their relationship settled into comfort. Yet that very comfort sometimes bred restlessness. Ashley began spending more evenings with friends, attending events that Mike wasn't always invited to. He noticed the subtle shifts, delayed texts, distracted smiles, and laughter over messages he couldn't see. One evening, Mike accidentally saw a message from a man named Ethan, someone new in Ashley's social circle. The tone was teasing, friendly, but the implications stung. "Who's Ethan?" Mike asked casually during dinner, trying to sound neutral. Ashley shrugged. "Just a guy from work. He's friendly, that's all." Mike nodded, but the knot in his chest tightened. Over the following weeks, Ashley started coming home later, giving vague explanations. The laughter over hidden messages became more frequent. Late one night, Mike returned from work early and found Ashley unusually quiet, her phone clutched tightly in her hand. "Ash, are you hiding something from me?" he asked, his voice steady but firm. Ashley looked up, startled. I don't know what you mean." "Don't play games. I saw the messages. Ethan, you've been meeting him," Mike said. Tears welled in Ashley's eyes. "It's not what you think. Mike, I never meant to hurt you." They spoke long into the night, Ashley apologizing, Mike grappling with the mix of love and betrayal. He chose to stay, but the first fissure in their relationship had been carved, leaving a shadow that would follow them for months.
The following months were a delicate dance. Mike, determined to hold on to what they had, tried to rebuild trust. He observed Ashley closely, noting her attempts to be transparent, answering texts immediately, sharing her plans, and even leaving her phone open to view. "I know I messed up," Ashley admitted one morning over breakfast. "I want to earn back your trust." Mike nodded, though the pain lingered. "Actions speak louder than words, Ash. Show me." Their days became a mixture of cautious optimism and lingering tension. Ashley attended counseling sessions with Mike, learning to navigate the consequences of her actions. Yet even with her efforts, the shadow of Ethan and that night loomed. Mike, meanwhile, immersed himself in work, using it both as an escape and a way to secure a future that could withstand any emotional turbulence. His long hours were punctuated by brief moments of connection at home, coffee cups shared in silence, gentle touches, and the occasional laughter that reminded them both why they had chosen each other in the first place. Yet, as life seemingly returned to a rhythm, a new challenge loomed on the horizon. Ashley's past indiscretions were not done with them. A reminder of that night, an unexpected call, or a message from someone in her previous circle always seemed to find its way back, threatening to undo the fragile progress. Mike knew he would have to make a choice soon, whether to continue repairing what was broken, or to accept that some fissures might never fully heal. As the months turned into years, Mike's focus on work began to pay off. Opportunities opened, investments flourished, and soon he had built himself into a man of means. Their once modest apartment was replaced by a spacious home with tall windows overlooking the city skyline. Mike's tailored suits, polished shoes, and confident stride became symbols of his transformation. Ashley admired the new life he had provided. "You've really made it, Mike," she said one evening, her voice full of awe as she gazed around their new home. He smiled, though tired from the long hours. "I did it for us, for stability, for a future we can rely on." Yet, beneath the surface, the same old doubts lingered. Ashley tried to match his ambition, but often felt lost in his growing world. She filled her days with friends, parties, and social gatherings, while Mike's schedule grew more demanding. One night, after returning home later than usual, Mike noticed Ashley asleep on the couch, her phone glowing with unread messages. Curiosity gnawed at him, but he forced himself to look away. He wanted to trust her, to believe in the second chance they had carved out. But somewhere deep down, the memory of Ethan's betrayal still whispered. As Mike's empire expanded, so did Ashley's need for attention and excitement. She attended high-end events alone, drinking more than she should, sometimes not returning home until dawn. "Ash," Mike said one morning, exhaustion in his tone, "I can't be at every party with you. I'm working to keep this life afloat, but I need to know you're being responsible." Ashley kissed his cheek lightly, brushing off his concerns. "Don't worry so much. I'm fine. We're fine." But Mike wasn't sure. For every milestone he achieved, he couldn't shake the fear that shadows from their past, or new ones forming, would catch up with them again.
Despite Ashley's efforts, doubts refused to vanish. The city lights outside their apartment were often a reminder of the night she hadn't come home. Mike couldn't help but replay it in his head. Her laughter in another man's presence, her absence while he buried himself in late-night meetings. One evening, as Ashley prepared dinner, Mike's phone buzzed with a message from an old friend. It was a photo from that very nightclub months ago, Ashley at the bar, laughing with Ethan. The sight hit Mike harder than he expected. The wound had never truly healed. When Ashley noticed his sudden silence, she placed a hand on his arm. "What's wrong?" Mike hesitated, then showed her the phone. "This. It's like it never goes away, Ashley. I can forgive, but I can't forget." Tears welled in her eyes. "I can't erase the past, Mike, but I want a future with you. Doesn't that mean anything?" He studied her face, torn between love and disappointment. "It does, But how long do I have to fight reminders of what you did?" The room filled with a heavy silence. The smell of garlic and pasta lingered in the air, but the warmth of home had vanished, replaced by the chilling reminder that trust, once shattered, was painfully slow to rebuild. Ashley reached for him, but Mike stepped back slightly. He wasn't ready to let her in. Not fully. Not yet. Weeks passed, and although life carried on with a semblance of normalcy, cracks kept forming beneath the surface. Mike tried to immerse himself further into his work, securing bigger contracts and expanding his business empire. Success filled his bank account, but left his heart hollow. Ashley, meanwhile, fought a daily battle between guilt and the desire to prove she could be trusted again. But one night, while Mike stayed late at the office, Ashley went out with a group of friends she hadn't seen in months. They promised just a few drinks, just laughter to take the edge off. Yet the night unraveled quickly. The neon lights of the club brought back a dangerous nostalgia, and among the crowd, Ethan appeared again, as if fate itself had conspired to test her. Ashley's heart dropped when their eyes met. Ethan smirked, confident as ever. "Didn't think I'd see you here again," he teased, leaning close. "I shouldn't be here," Ashley muttered, clutching her glass tightly. She knew she needed to leave, but the noise, the alcohol, and the familiar temptation clouded her judgment. Ethan offered her another drink, and though she refused at first, her resolve weakened as the night wore on. By the time the clock struck 2 a.m., she was unsteady on her feet, and Ethan was there to guide her out into the night. Mike, meanwhile, sat in his office, reviewing numbers on his laptop. He checked his phone occasionally, noting Ashley hadn't messaged since early evening. A flicker of unease brushed across his chest, but he buried it under the excuse of exhaustion and deadlines. Ashley didn't return home that night. Morning sunlight streamed through Mike's office blinds as he finally closed his laptop. Exhaustion tugged at his body, but unease gnawed deeper than fatigue. He dialed Ashley's number again, straight to voicemail. A heaviness settled in his chest as he drove home, hoping to find her asleep in bed. But the house was silent, empty. Mike walked through the rooms, the absence of her presence screaming louder than words. Her purse wasn't by the counter. Her jacket still hung by the door. His jaw tightened as a storm of realization surged inside him. By noon, he knew. Ashley hadn't simply lost track of time. She had chosen not to come home. That evening, while Ashley stirred awake in a stranger's apartment, her head throbbing from alcohol, Mike changed the locks. He stood at the door with a locksmith, watching the old keys become useless. Each turn of the drill felt like closing another chapter. He placed Ashley's belongings in neat boxes, every fold of clothing and every framed photo packed with quiet finality. Her phone calls began the next day, at first cheerful and apologetic, then confused, then panicked when the line cut to silence, blocked. By the time she tried her old key in the door and found it useless, reality hit. Mike had drawn the line. Inside, Mike stood in the kitchen, his phone resting on the counter, buzzing with unanswered calls. His heart ached, but his resolve was iron. This was no longer about punishment, it was about survival, about refusing to live in the shadow of betrayal again. Outside, Ashley's fists beat against the locked door,
her voice muffled, desperate. But the house remained quiet, and Mike didn't move.
Ashley's voice cracked as she pounded the door again, her palms stinging from the force. "Mike, please, just talk to me." The quiet suburban street carried her pleas, but the house stood as silent as stone. Neighbors peeked through curtains, whispering at the sight of her disheveled figure on the porch. Inside, Mike leaned against the counter, staring at the boxes he had packed. Every photograph, every shared memory was tucked away, as though cataloging the remains of a relationship he could no longer keep alive. He pressed his palms into the counter until his knuckles whitened. Each muffled cry from outside tugged at him, but he stayed rooted. He remembered the night she left him waiting, the night she chose someone else. He thought of the second chances already squandered. Ashley slid down against the door, her knees pulled to her chest, tears streaking her face. "I was stupid. I was drunk. But it didn't mean anything," she whispered, her voice breaking. "You're my home, Mike." But inside, Mike didn't answer. The phone, face down on the counter, buzzed one last time before the screen went dark. His chest tightened, but he knew there was no turning back. Love wasn't supposed to feel like this, like begging, like betrayal replaying in an endless loop. Hours later, when Ashley finally left the porch, her figure small against the fading streetlights, Mike closed his eyes and exhaled. The silence was heavy, but it was finally his. The next morning, Ashley returned, her eyes swollen from a night of restless tears. She clutched her purse like a lifeline, her steps slow as she approached the front door again. She reached for her key, the familiar metal scraping against the lock, only to be met with resistance. The key no longer fit. Her breath caught as she tried again, twisting harder, until the truth struck her with merciless clarity. Mike had changed the locks. Her chest tightened, panic flooding in. She knocked at first, then pounded harder, desperation in every motion. "Mike, please open the door. Please, just let me explain." Her voice cracked under the weight of disbelief, fear, and regret. From inside, silence lingered. The house stood still, its walls no longer hers, its warmth gone. Ashley pressed her forehead against the door, her tears dripping onto the wood. She slid down once more, curling into herself, the reality settling in. She was truly locked out, not just of the house, but of Mike's life. Inside, Mike sat on the couch, staring at the muted glow of the morning sun filtering through the blinds. His phone lay beside him, filled with unanswered messages and calls he'd chosen not to hear. For the first time in years, he felt a strange mixture of sadness and relief. The finality of it hurt, but it was also freedom. Ashley's voice outside wavered into sobs, then silence. The neighborhood seemed to hold its breath, watching the collapse of something that once looked unbreakable. She finally rose on trembling legs, turned away from the door, and walked down the street, without looking back. Mike leaned forward, resting his face in his hands. It was over. Completely, irreversibly over. He had made his choice, and he wasn't going to undo it. Ashley stumbled through the day in a daze. Every corner of the city seemed to remind her of Mike, the restaurants they had visited, the streets they had walked hand in hand. Her mind wrestled with disbelief. She couldn't fathom that he had truly cut her off. That night, with shaky hands, she reached for her phone and dialed his number. The call didn't go through. Confused, she tried again, only to be met with the same cold silence. Finally, the truth appeared on the screen. This number has been blocked." Her heart sank. She clutched the phone against her chest, as though holding it tighter could bring him back. The reality that Mike had placed her in his blacklist, erasing her from every line of communication, left her gasping for air. It wasn't just the door he had locked. It was every doorway to him, every thread that once tied them together. Meanwhile, Mike sat in his office late into the evening. The glow of his computer screen reflected off his glasses as he finished a proposal, his mind focused, his heart darted. The decision to block her number hadn't been impulsive, it was deliberate, a shield against temptation and weakness. For the first time, he felt in control. His life was steady again, free from the turbulence Ashley had brought back into it. Ashley, however, refused to give up so easily. She spent the following morning outside the coffee shop where Mike often stopped before work. Hours passed as she waited, clutching a paper cup that had long gone cold. But Mike never showed. Whether by chance or by design, their paths no longer crossed. It was as though the universe itself had conspired to keep them apart. That evening, she returned once more to the house. The new locks mocked her as she tried to open the door with trembling hands. She pounded, shouted, pleaded, but the silence inside was impenetrable. Finally, with her voice broken and her body exhausted, Ashley whispered to the door, "Please, don't erase me." Inside, Mike heard none of it. He had turned off the doorbell camera, silenced the outside world. His future was his own now, and in that solitude, he felt something close to peace.
Ashley's persistence began to wane. Days slipped into weeks, each one chipping away at her determination. The spark in her eyes dimmed as she realized the gravity of what she had lost. The man who had once forgiven her, who had given her a second chance, was gone. Not physically, but emotionally, spiritually, irreversibly. She wandered the streets at night, retracing steps of memories that no longer belonged to her. The laughter they once shared had become ghosts that haunted her. The more she tried to cling to the past, the more it slipped through her fingers like sand. One evening, she stood across from Mike's office building, staring at the tall windows illuminated by late-night work. She could see his silhouette, calm and steady, immersed in his world without her. Her chest ached, but there was nothing left to say, nothing left to undo. Mike, on the other hand, found a quiet strength in moving forward. The chaos of heartbreak no longer ruled him. His nights were filled with progress, his days with focus. He had closed the chapter of Ashley not out of cruelty, but out of necessity. Forgiveness had limits. Trust, once shattered, could not always be rebuilt. The final test came when Ashley wrote him a letter. Pages filled with apologies, promises, and desperate pleas. She slipped it under his door one last time. Mike picked it up the next morning, read it slowly, then folded it neatly and placed it in a drawer. He did not respond. That silence became the truest answer he could give. For Ashley, the locked door had become more than wood and steel. It was a symbol of what happens when second chances are taken for granted. Standing there for the last time, she pressed her palm against the door, tears streaming down her cheeks, whispering, "Goodbye." Inside, Mike didn't hear her words, but he felt lighter than he had in years. The weight of indecision was gone. His future no longer had room for betrayal. And now, the question remains. If you were in Mike's place, after betrayal, forgiveness, and one last chance gone wrong, would you close the door forever? Or give her one more chance?